So the question, maybe I repeat the question as well. The question is, how do you decide whether the BAC is the best program or the IB diploma program?
There's no better or best, or it's what fits your child, maybe your family's style, maybe your culture, maybe, if you are going to travel all over the world, well, you will find both schools, both kind of schools. Schools with the French bac, which are pretty much everywhere, and schools with the IBDP. So it allows for mobility. One is more for independent students, I would say. Students who choose the French bac like to have more guidance. Students who succeed in the IB are students who are extremely independent and need to have their own voice, maybe rather. So it's a little bit it's just different kinds of students, and that's why we want to offer that, because we want to offer opportunities for different students to succeed.
I can give another alternative. I had a student who said to me, no, this is not for me. I'd rather do the BAC because I want to keep my 3 languages and I want to keep my 4 sciences. And I'm not sure how the BAC reform is going to work, but I think it's similar, but it might just give them a couple more options instead of the 6 subjects. And of course the 6 subjects, what the IB says is it gives you breadth, it's more than the 3 A levels, but you could go a little bit more in depth, whether maybe in the French BAC you have more breadth, but maybe a little less depth because you don't have the time for it. So that could be a difference as well.
There was a question here. Thank you. So the question is, will students who come in second next year be asked to make a decision on day 1? The answer is no. Especially because we don't have a specific class for next year, and our second is anyway completely bilingual. We teach humanities in English, we teach economics in English for everyone in second. We have some vous savez, les enseignements d'exploration, some are in English, some are in French, so already our students have a very bilingual program. And in English, language and literature, we stream our groups so that some of the most able students or the most advanced students in English are doing English literature rather than language acquisition. So there will not be a specific second class next year for the IB, but our class will prepare them to switch to the IB at the end of second, entering première, which is the IB DP1. Second part. The IBDP is a very expensive program to run. We have shown you here the few subjects that we have decided to have as our core. However, the beauty of the program is to offer more options. Obviously, for us, it depends on the cohort. If we have more students, we can offer more options. For instance, in individual and society, there could be a class about the history of religion or archaeology. But that cannot be done unless we have quite a few students. It's a very expensive program because of the choices, which make small groups, and because there is a requirement for extensive and ongoing training for everyone who teaches in the IB, including me, by the way. I don't teach in the IB, but the head of school and the head of secondary, Paul, and vice principal, Raquel, who's here, we all go to trainings in the IB. So that's the main reason. So yes, right now we have priced our EIP along the lines of what we expect is going to be the IB, so you can see that on our website.
Maybe I can say a little bit more also about the preparation in Seconda. Of course, just like in the BAC, When students now, and of course that's going to change, but when they have to choose between S and ES and L, you guide them through it. And so you start that conversation maybe around this time, what would you like to do? What are you thinking? Maybe are you thinking about universities already? And then it's a big process. Also, let's say they want to choose the IB diploma program, what 6 subjects would you choose and why and what do you need? And so it's not that they immediately have to say yes or no. It's about what suits them best, and that could depend on maybe what they want to do later after their secondary school.
Yeah. It keeps a second as a point of entry and reflect, think about what you want to do and all that. Next question, yes?
Thank you. How does the total number of teaching hours vary between the IB and the French baccalaureate?
The number of hours of instruction? I have to say I didn't count, but...
For the IB, it's quite clear. You have to have the 180 instruction hours for standard level and 240 for the higher level. I think looking at the schedule, weekly, weekly, I would say it's very similar because, again, even though students in the IB might have independent study time, this is not a time where they can hang out in the library. They've got internal assessments to complete. They've got coursework to do. So yes, there might be more independent study hours, but it does not mean that they can go home. It's very important that they keep their work, that they organize their work and make sure that they don't start to fall behind.
Right now, in the French pack, it's between, depending on the number of options and all that, it's between 32 and 40 hours, which is a lot. And those are all guided hours, and the difference is it could be 32 hours in the IB, but then you have all the independent work to do too. So very similar.
At present, what are the different options in the arts that you envisage to offer next year?
That's a good question. So in Group 6, what would we offer maybe in the future as well? So at the moment we have a trained visual arts teacher. We also have the facilities to offer drama, and we're quite interested in that as well.
Third language.
So,
could be third language.
Yeah, it could of course be a third language as well. But I think you're specifically wanting to know about the arts, or yes, yeah. I know that, for example, we both worked in San Francisco, and they offered music there, which is quite rare, and it was really nice. And I know that our music teacher is very interested in it. It again depends a little bit on the cohort. If we have one musician, the component of collaboration, where they will have to work together in an orchestra, is going to be lost to that student, and so there is no point in offering it. So. With the arts, often it depends on the amount of people. I've seen a drama group run with 2 students, and it wasn't very successful because it does require quite a bit of group work.
We are starting the program, so obviously we're starting reasonably, or it would be completely unreasonably priced, and also unreasonably uncollaborative. But we hope that as we grow, and we hope to have eventually a cohort of about 35 to 50 students in each year, but that's going to take a few years. And when we have that, then we can offer a lot more options within each program subject group.
And how easy would it be to make the transition?
Yeah.
For students currently in seconde, who there would be the very first cohort, and how prepared do you think that they would be to follow the EDP curriculum?
Well, the IB, as Madame Rabaté already said, was started as a program for global citizens, for internationally traveling families. And so it is catered for students from actually all around the world with different backgrounds. And so it might be a bit different from what they know at first, but students adapt quite well to the kind of teaching. And again, I've from experience seen students coming from Austria that had very little English actually in DP1 being very successful at the end of DP2. What is important to understand as well is that this school already has, in a lot of the subject, well, I think in most of the subject, an IB approach. So we already have that inquiry-based and concept-based learning and collaboration, exactly. So in the end, it's the mission of our school aligns quite well with the IB program.
So we don't forecast a particular time for students to adjust, because our students are already quite independent, trained to collaborate, trained to ask questions, and to be curious. They're trained in CAS. We take them away and abroad on various service learning trips where they actually work. I don't know, well, there isn't anybody because it's for Première this year. So it's really, our school prepares for both programs, and it was meant from the beginning, so it's been set up to be like that. I actually when I started hiring 4 years ago now almost, I also looked for a few teachers with IB or MYP experience, and that's why you can see that on our team we already have quite a few teachers, because we've built the team over the years to have that experience and to be able to get to touch the ground running. Yeah. Student?
Sorry, I wasn't quite sure what the theory of knowledge actually was.
Oh, well done. That's a very good question. Theory of knowledge is a subject that students have to do. And what it explores is, how do we know what we know? And how do we know that what my teacher is telling me is actually correct? So, for example, in history, you will challenge the teacher by asking questions. Well, how do you know that's true? Is truth possible within history? What about truth in science? How does that compare to truth in history? Is there beauty in truth? And so you start to kind of think about your subjects in a completely different manner, and questioning, how this knowledge, how you come by the knowledge, especially in history, that's important. But also, of course, in science, if you do experiments, is it going to be the same outcome when you have different conditions? So it's really about, you do a lot of talking in the theory of knowledge class, I must say, and it works best if students are very engaged and interested in this. We already offer some classes, and I know in Seconde we will offer some theory of knowledge in later this year. And for example, the first lesson that I did was to prove that unicorns exist. There you go. I see you look, so come and join that class, because I will prove it to you.
It's a little bit, it has a lot to do with philosophy, the part of philosophy that questions our senses, how we know, do we know through our senses, through our reason, it's really questioning the world around us. So again, remember that it is inspired by the French back in the very beginning, and so philosophy and humanities are things that are core subjects in any série du bac français. The question is, are there any differences in opportunities, and I believe higher education, that's what you mean, so entry to universities? And the answer is no, because the French bac is very well known, has a great reputation for being rigorous academically and training self-discipline and all that. And the IB has a very good reputation as well all over the world. Lots of independent schools who don't follow a national program have adopted the IBDP for a long time. The IBDP has been around for more than 90 years, 90. Very well known everywhere, as you saw in the previous one of this presentation, by the way, will be accessible to everybody on the website, not just the portal, but the website. So anybody, if you want to share it with friends who couldn't be here tonight, you can. And if you can go back, you could go back, I should show you that universities say, for instance, Stanford has a special check mark. Do you have at the very top of their application form? Do you have the ID? Check mark up. That's one thing. So I've been in for 13 years. with leading schools and in the U.S., both in Washington D.C. and in San Francisco, and I never saw any problem for our students, whether they had the IB or whether they went for the French bac, in their applications and offers and destinations in the end. Last year, our students with the French bac were offered fantastic places in universities such as Imperial, UCL, LSE, King's College, Bristol, Warwick, Georgetown University, Columbia University in New York, McGill in Canada, and the students with the IB would have just the same chances.
Hello. First of all, thank you and congratulations for all the efforts you made to make school a true identity and also to make it a truly international one. We have a son in CM2, in year 5. Could he start year 6 in a French program and switch in 4ème or in second to the IB program?
Yep, that is possible. There's some natural, so the question is, can students transfer to the English international program at different points within our French track? And absolutely. For example, a very natural way would be maybe after the brevet, and students would then, if once we have a cohort big enough in the English international program that has grown towards the year 11 or the seconde, they could join that group. That's much in the future, obviously. So that's a very natural transition. Another natural transition is from seconde to the IB1.
We have lots of students. Actually, I believe that, except for one maybe in CDM this year, in year 7, all our students today came from our own French CM2, and they're in the IB this year with absolutely no problem.
Do we have a goal? So the question is, do we have a goal in the average amount of points? It might come as a shock when I would say that the global average of the 45 points is 29. I can say that is because of a couple of factors, and one of them is that a lot of American schools do part of the IB, and sometimes they drag the global average a little bit down. If we would have an average between 33 and 35, which would be the European average, I would say, that would get our students into fantastic universities with some fantastic offers. And it would be a feasible goal as well. Of course, the goal would be, to get them as many, to get them to reach their full potential, and that could be different for each student. So I would say the goal might be 33 to 35, but I've had a student pass with 24 points, and he might be the student that I'm most proud of. Because that kid obviously, it took a lot of effort for him to do the IB diploma program, and he made it, and that made me incredibly proud. So again, yes, we could talk in points and say, okay, what do universities want? I know that the IB doesn't really like to talk that way anyway themselves, because they say, well, the program is beneficial for all kinds of different students, no matter what their full potential is. But of course, it's a question that comes back when you look at university applications, and then 33, 35 is a good goal.
Yeah, just like we universities ask for very high grades in the French bac, they make conditional offers. We've already had quite a few offers for our next cohort, and sometimes it means to have 16 in physics, or to have 16 in literature, or to have a mention assez bien ou bien ou très bien for Canadian universities particularly. So every university set their own bar in a way. 35 is considered very high already.
Yeah, so the question is, how does the IB accommodate students with learning needs? Very well. So there is lots of opportunities for students, for example, even in their exams, to get additional time. There's opportunities to get a scribe. There are various opportunities. The only thing that you need to show to the IB is that there are actual learning needs, and so for that there needs to be an official declaration for these learning needs. But
just like in the back.
just
really.
like in any system, I would say, yeah. But again, that is very, very possible, not a problem. And important to mention as well, because it is an international program, and I'm an examiner for history, and I see lots of spelling mistakes in the scripts that I get, but that is not what I'm grading on. I'm grading them on their ideas, their critical thinking skills. And so even with dyslexia, I've had some very good students in the IB who were dyslexic and could perform really well. Good, yeah. So the question is, would students who have taken GCSEs be able to go to the IB? Yes. And one of the things that I could say for that as well is that many British schools have also introduced the IB, and so it's very natural for them to have their students take GCSEs and then move into the IB diploma program. Some of the work is quite similar, the essay writing, for example.
Our students who are in the EIB and our students in general who are most able in English take already the IGCSE at the end of second.
And I know that's different so the question is a relocation between première and terminale, so between DP1 and DP2. In the IB, it's a little bit more difficult because not all schools offer the same subjects. So let's say we are offering anthropology, and the new school might not offer that subject. That could be a problem. Maybe some of the coursework has been done in one school and it hasn't been done yet in the other school. So usually schools would advise against it and say try and have the students stay within the DP for the entire time of the school. This is really a 2-year program, although it has happened. It's not something that is never done. One of the things that it can help is that there is an online school called Pomoja, and schools work with these online schools, and they offer IB subjects as well. So it could be that a student is taking Mandarin here. Let's say we might offer that in the future. They could actually continue that online with Pomoja. There are additional costs, obviously, because it's seen as another school, but it's with a teacher, it's with a class, but it's online. And that could be another possibility, but it's not ideal. So the question is there a difference in the use of technology? No, not at all. All of our students in every program receive an iPad, and in every class these are used. And in different manners, and could be the same when needed. So no, absolutely not. Oh yeah. So the first question is: will there be a troisième in the EIP? So that is a year 10
next year. Yeah.
Yeah. So that yes. Not sure how many students there will be yet. We have at the moment 5 students in that group. So it's a small group, but they would be more than excited to have some additional students in their class. The second question is there a concrete example for inquiry-based learning? Instead of giving my students notes about what were the causes of World War I can ask them, I want you to investigate the causes of World War I. One of you is going to look at militarism, one of you is going to look at alliances, one of you is going to look at imperialism, and one of you is going to look at nationalism. So instead of, and of course you give them tools, you help them, how do I navigate the World Wide Web? Where can I find sources that are reliable, etc.? So you help them. We have a digital library, so that again they work with the students as well on media literacy and technology literacy maybe. So that is a very classroom exercise. Of course, the inquiry-based learning for the IB is really in this extended essay where they have to write 4,000 words on their own. The official amount of hours they can sit with their supervisor is 3. So that is quite individual. And then all the coursework is an investigation that they do, inquiry-based. They come up with the research question. Then they have to approach, the sort of problem solving with what they have learned. How do I find my sources? How do I know if these sources are reliable? If they do a scientific experiment, that could happen as well. If I do this experiment, is it ethical? What do I need to do? So they constantly ask themselves questions, and that is part of that inquiry-based learning.
And in our school already we offer the EPQ, which is the British version of the extended essay. I supervised 2 students this year, I had 1 last year, and they choose a subject, and they come to see me 3 times in 10 weeks, that's it. I'm just there to be their psychoanalyst and just listen and say, how do you feel about it? And they tell me, you know, and they decide, but they have quite big subject, and our role as mentor is to help them refine it. Last year my students wanted to solve, to cure Alzheimer's. And I said, well, 10 weeks might be a bit short. So you might want to look into something, you know, more defined, like how to cure Alzheimer's. But she did, and in the end she got 8 stars, so it was very good, it was amazing. So we already train, we have teachers trained, and you know, people in the admin, to mentor students through independent research. The French bac had the TPE, travaux personnels encadrés, in which they also choose their subject and they must find. So all this, that's why we feel that the French bac and the IB-DP are very close. I mean, they're close cousins, really. They come from the same family tree, really. So it's very comfortable. Our teachers are trained for both, and we believe that it's going to be a big success. The one thing that we have and other schools may not have, because there are already independent schools in London offering the IB or IBDP, but the one thing that we believe we have is the fact that we could offer a bilingual DP. So our students can come from either side of the, both sides of the aisle, and they're from either program and succeed either in the French bac or one is a mirror of the other, really. One is a little heavier on the use of English, the other one on the use of French, but you could really prove yourself just as well with the French and realize your own potential just as well in the Bac Français bilingue as in the IBDP. With this, I'm going to thank everyone for coming tonight. Don't forget that our next open house, where we'll talk more about the IBDP and the EIP, is on the 8th of December, Saturday 8th of December. We also offer private visit. Please, call us up. Paul Ben is head of admissions and communications, and he can arrange for you to visit the school, see the school in action. Thank you very much, everyone, and thank you. Thank you, Michael.